Hi there, welcome. I'm Bob Thompson, and I'd like to welcome you to the Philanthropic Planner Program. We've been doing this crazy thing for 9 or 10 years, and it's a boring subject, philanthropy. But what we want to do is have a meaningful, friendly forum to promote dialogue about the importance of philanthropy. Chronicle of Philanthropy. We start off with this, and I have some friends that tell me, hey Bob, don't use old issues. So this is an old issue, but I won't tell you how old. Philanthropic Planner is for you and me as philanthropists, and also for philanthropic planners, attorneys, accountants, trust officers, insurance people, financial planners, and so on. I won't get into the normal 3 to 5 minutes of the rest of why we do this. To avoid legalese, you don't have to be a multimillionaire to be a philanthropist. You can be a volunteer, but we got to cut that part short because we have two very important guests this morning. We have a repeat guest, Mr. Augustine Burriesci. I call him Gus. Gus has been on the program a couple times before, and he is the Estate and Gift Planner Director for the American Cancer Society. And with Gus is JEANETTE, am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Major Gift Director for the American Cancer Society. JEANETTE has not been with us before, but we welcome you. And Gus, we put up with Gus every once in a while.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
You're welcome. I mentioned to the staff this morning that when we have American Cancer Society, a program, an organization that does so much, has been around for a long period of time, we could spend 2 or 3 hours talking about cancer. Mm-hmm. So I titled this particular program, Cancer, You and Me, and a subtitle, Stay Well and Find Cures. So, and people have heard me say before, cancer affects everybody out there. I'm sure you have a neighbor, friend, family member, or what have you that have been impacted by cancer. Personally, my wife is a survivor of ovarian stage 4 cancer. Her sister died several years before of ovarian cancer. We have friends, breast cancer, lung cancer, and so on. So it affects you and me and everybody around us. So having an important program like American Cancer Society every other year or what have you, that's our motivation. That's our passion, if you will. We have a lot of important guests, a lot of important organizations and so on, but American Cancer is close to us, okay? So welcome.
Thank you.
Gus, you've had 83 titles with American Cancer Society, and Gus has one of the toughest jobs out there with American Cancer, estate and gift planning, and what you raise in a year, locally and nationally, you're doing a lot of good. Tell us about research. Tell us about what American Cancer Society is doing today.
Well, Bob, first of all, thank you so much for having me back here. This is my 3rd time, and giving us an update and allowing me to have JEANETTE. JEANETTE's wonderful. She's our new Major Gifts Officer, Director here handling Connecticut, along with myself handling estate gift planning in Connecticut. So thank you so much for that. We are doing so much that we are so proud of, but there is so much left that needs to be done. Our wonderful donors, and we don't even call them donors anymore, Bob. We now call them investors, because they are investing in a cancer-free world. And research is paramount to this. Outside of the federal government, the American Cancer Society has raised well over $3.8 billion since our first research grant to Mary Lasker in 1946, over $3.8 billion. Right here in Connecticut, currently we have 19 research grants in effect, totaling $10.4 million. And these are young investigators, Bob, 16 of them at Yale, New Haven. We have 2 of them at the UConn Health Center, and we have 1 of them in Griffin Hospital. These wonderful investigators cannot do their research without the kindness of our investors, of people with Jeanette wanting to make a major gift, of people with me wanting to do a planned gift. It's impossible. And we have made so many strides. We have well over 11 million cancer survivors right now. And it's wonderful, but we still don't have the disease under control to where we want to make it a chronic disease.
If I have cancer and 5 years later, I'm deemed or titled a survivor, is that correct?
That is correct. It's from the day of diagnosis.
Day of diagnosis.
So people ask all the time, and it's a great question, why we are still around. Because cancer is still around. And we will be here until this is basically a disease that is under control.
Yeah. And there are so many different kinds of cancer. Let me interject, and forgive me, I want to spend most of the time with Jeanette and Gus, but looking at and reviewing, and I encourage everybody to get in and look at their website. But I found something interesting yesterday afternoon and this morning, that if we added colon, lung, prostate, breast cancers all combined, the biggest by far is skin cancer. And that blew me away. But let me ask you, Jeanette, Jeanette, major gifts, is that fundraising events, or what's a major gift for our audience?
Well, a major gift, I mean, it could include events and other activities, participating in Relay for Life or making strides against breast cancer campaigns. But really, the cultivation of a major gift really entails building a relationship with the person who may have an interest in supporting the work of cancer. So it, usually entails anywhere from, I would say, a first visit, which would be very unusual, to maybe 18, 20 months and even longer to cultivate a potential donor and to bring him and or her financial interests in line with the American Cancer Center's financial interests, so that in the end, the gift that the donor is going to give helps them forward their philanthropic goals as well as ours.
Right.
And that is the goal. And that usually is a process that takes time, because we want the potential donor to feel like they are the important person in the process.
That's the relationship part of it. Now, a lot of times that's in the form of a memorial gift for a deceased spouse, something like that. I see a lot, in our practice, I see a lot of that interest.
Well, I think when somebody has had a loved one who passes away due to having a cancer, it creates an emotional sense of urgency in them oftentimes to want to support the remediation of that particular kind of cancer, and also because there are a lot of genetic factors to go into a family in which cancer has occurred. They may be interested in helping save the lives of other family members. Right.
That's why I mentioned my wife's sister. We find genetically, we find in a behavioral aspect, a lot of family history. Stay well is what I started off, and find the cures. Stay well, we get a lot more of our research by, you call them investigators and research scientists and so on, that the behavioral aspect of how do we eat better, how do we, I mentioned skin cancer and that kind of thing, how do we smoke less, okay, because a lot of what American Cancer Society has really, really benefited society is that 50% of our country is smoke-free, and that's largely due to the hard work to get legislation and awareness, to increase the awareness out there of how smoking affects lung cancer and so on. But we're doing a lot more than just research. We're helping families, we're helping support families, doing a lot of, I'm saying above and beyond research, as important as that is 47 scientists supported by American Cancer Society are Nobel Prize winners, 47. And the result of that is 20 or 30% less of certain types of prostate cancer or breast cancer. So we are doing good. We are finding cures for so many different kinds of cancer.
Absolutely, and I will give you a cold hard fact that if all of us met, if there was 5 of us in 1913 and we had a situation to where 5 of us unfortunately had cancer, 1 out of 5 survived. So we have come such a long way since 1913, and you really hit some great salient points there, Bob. And to add, as far as researchers, we have for our, like I say, I want to use the term investors now, tours. We have tours in Connecticut. We recently had one at Yale that we invited many, many people to, and it was wonderful. And what happened is...
In the research labs or tours?
Yes, we have people that have been funded by the American Cancer Society through our wonderful, whether it's a general donation, major gifting, what have you, that took us to Yale, New Haven, that took us to their labs. And we had a couple of these investigators tell us exactly what they're doing. And I will tell you something. You talk about perseverance, they're more wrong than they're right.
Sure.
They are looking for that major breakthrough.
Yeah.
And they are marvelous. Most of them are MDs, all of them are PhDs, and it's interesting that you're talking about staying well and getting well, because that really is our creed. Staying well, getting well, so we can have these breakthroughs. And that's really the paramount of what we're doing. We offer people rides throughout the state, and it's quite interesting, Bob. Many times I'll have people say to me, you know, a nice young man came to me and gave me a ride to a treatment. And I'll say, well, that's very nice, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Jones. Do you know where he was from? You know, I don't. He was with the American Cancer Society.
Yeah.
He was a Road to Recovery volunteer
Now this is a volunteer
that turned around and donated his car, his gas, to take that person for their treatment. That is something we offer. We offer so many things that people are completely unaware of. We have Hope Lodges throughout the country to where it's basically a home, a hotel away from home, where a patient and their family can go
while they're going through
treatment. And all of these things, you know as well as I know, Bob, being a financial planner, everything costs money. Everything costs funds to do. I'll give an example. A few years ago, I was sitting next to an investor, and we were at a particular facility here in Yukon. And the investor said to me, Gus, I'm just curious, this researcher that's speaking right now, how much money is he looking for? And I said, $700,000. And the person that asked me the question almost fell off their chair. Okay, this is a true story. And I said, yes. I said, I'm not saying all researchers are at that amount, but I'm giving you an idea how much it is to fund a researcher. It is very expensive, and that's why we need these relays. We had close to 60 relays here in Connecticut. Most notably, we had a wonderful relay at Farmington Valley Relay. They raised well over $425,000. We had a great relay in West Hartford. We have a relay also in North Central. We have them, as I said, all over the state and all over the country. And we have over 3 million volunteers. And these are grassroots people that volunteer their time. We are volunteer driven.
Right, right. And I don't mean to ask bad questions, but Relay for Life and that kind of thing. What percent of total income to the American Cancer Society comes from event-driven things like Relay for Life and that kind of thing? Do you have any idea what the percentage is?
I don't know what the number is now. I will tell you this, though, that from a Relay for Life and from a general contribution, the funds get split to research, to education, to advocacy, and services. I will tell you that. The only event that strictly goes toward research is when we have our Making Strides Against Breast Cancer event. That will take place in October. The closest one here in Hartford is Bushnell Park. All the proceeds from that will go to breast cancer research. And if I could just add very quickly, this year, yes, obviously there have been more women affected with breast cancer than men. Men do get breast cancer, and men are also affected because obviously their wives, their daughters, their loved ones are affected. So this year we have a campaign calling Real Men Wear Pink. And it's to get men engaged. And I'm proud to say that many, many men are signing up for this.
Sure.
And if one is interested at the end of the program, I'm more than happy to give them the information on how they're able to follow through on that.
But my point was event-driven fundraising, that where the participant is physically involved, there's a motivation there to, everybody wins. Everybody wins. So the athletic events, the half marathons and the 5Ks, and these events have become very popular in the last 10 years. I want to touch, because this goes pretty quick, Jeanette, there are so many ways for us to give. And another thing that is really resonating out there is required minimum distribution from IRAs. If I'm 70 and a half, we've experienced where a number of our older clients are giving from their IRA where they're required to, but we're allowed to do that directly to American Cancer Society. Do you see that as a growing thing for the?
Well, I see that as being an issue for many individuals or couples, that they really are required to take a minimum distribution of funds that they really do not need to cover their day-to-day living expenses or anything they
don't need that.
Yes, yes. And so I'm glad that people like you are calling that to their attention, that there are other ways that they can invest this money rather than, that can benefit a charity that they may care about.
Yeah.
So,
it's, and I've been doing this not as long as Gus. Gus has been around about 80 years. And I'm 75 years after that. But with the gift planning and the estate planning and bequests and so on, we kind of take those things for granted.
Yes, we do.
Where a required minimum distribution is something that is from donor advised funds. We have people that create these funds, and I get people that say, Bob, I'd like to do more if I could. I'd like to do more if I knew how. Well, if I could, is what Jeanette said, I have the capacity to do that. If I knew how, all these things are around us.
Yes,
that we can do effectively to go for the cure and stay well. But another thing that we're seeing is gifting of life insurance policies where people are saying, why do I need this now? And that might be an individual, or it could be a business owner, okay? I made a presentation where I found out that $10 billion a year goes in lapsed insurance policies because people either don't want to pay the premiums anymore, or it's not good anymore. I don't have the need. So tell me more about some of the things that American Cancer Society is doing information-wise. You have a great website that people should be getting into to find out, because we don't have the time today. But I've noticed since you were here last time, Gus, that website is much, much more improved as far as information and statistics and facts and how people can live better, healthier, and so on.
It's a really organic thing. It's updated all the time, and obviously the more we know, the more we can improve it. And there's such an emphasis today on using the internet to get information that we understand that. And so the updating of the information on the website, and also the training of the people who answer the 1-800 calls. They're consistently being trained, because what we've learned about cancer is changing from day to day.
And
so there's an emphasis
how people
on that.
relate to it, how it resonates with them. I understand that, and I'm not a techie. I'm not a techie.
Me either.
But I can understand that people can make gifts on mobile devices, okay? There are a lot of interesting things that people are doing now on this techie world stuff. But I can also make a regular automatic monthly gift and say, I want to gift $25 a month to
Absolutely.
American Cancer Society. And these are different ways that I would do more if I knew how. These things are out there. Visit that website and some of the things, good things that Jeanette and Gus are saying.
And we appreciate the partnership of financial advisors and planners like yourself, because oftentimes you are the key. If we make sure that you know as much as you need to know to recommend the American Cancer Society, then that's in our best interest. So
yeah,
we're very pleased with this relationship.
And that's growing. That's
yes.
growing. We've talked about the CAP designation, Charter Advisor in Philanthropy. And we talk about other planners. I'm happy to see that John Eccles with Pinnacle is having a philanthropic program inviting, and again, the same motivation is to have a friendly forum to talk about the importance of philanthropy to great causes like American Cancer Society. Gus, what are some other things that are on you want to talk about a brochure or?
Sure. Specifically, just to let people know, as far as planned giving, there are so many different ways that they can do it. It's such an easy thing to do. One can remember the American Cancer Society to make a simple bequest. 2/3 of what we get are bequest in their will. It's very, very simple.
Still 2/3
2/3
bequest.
Come from bequest, and they make it in their will. You brought up life insurance policy. That's another way that people can do it and have the American Cancer Society listed as a beneficiary, have themselves as ACS as an owner or a beneficiary. Mm-hmm. Also, many, many times people want to get a handsome income, which they would do with a charitable remainder trust or an inter vivos, a living trust, a revocable trust, to where American Cancer Society is listed as a beneficiary.
Right, right.
Also, we offer charitable gift annuities. And the nice thing about a charitable gift annuity, when you do one with the ACS, is that there are no fees. There are no fees involved whatsoever. We do a great deal of them. I'm more than happy to do illustrations for people, Bob. The illustrations are free. I would come to someone's house, I can email it to them, and they get a handsome income for their life. And you made a great point a couple of seconds ago, Bob, because a lot of times people don't know, like I was giving the example of the road driver that someone didn't know was American Cancer. A lot of times people don't know, oh, I didn't know you offered this.
Right.
Because I'm not able to
Right.
walk a track at this relay. But you know something, Gus? I can remember you in my will. You know something, Jeanette? I can make a gift to fund that researcher at UConn.
Right.
And you know something else? I can also remember you in my will. And I didn't know you
Yeah.
offered that.
Yeah.
And the information that I'm discussing, we have so many periodicals, but we have a Dear Loved Ones, and this is also a Finish the Fight, because we are out to finish this fight, a survey. So many periodicals that you could easily request at 1-800-ACS-2345 or www.cancer.org. That will give you the information, that will give you the specific bequest information on that 1-800 number that I just gave. If you wanted to reach Jeanette here in Connecticut, or you wanted to reach myself, Gus Brees here in Connecticut, you would call that number.
Yeah, yeah. Let me come back to charitable gift annuities for a second. We're in a low interest environment today, very low. And the people that are depending on CDs at banks and their savings accounts and so on. We've done a couple illustrations and proposals for some clients. And when we're talking about lifetime income through a gift annuity, a charitable gift annuity, and we're talking about lifetime, and we're looking at 6.5%, depending. It changes for ages, okay? But when people look at these, and we were even talking recently about a 10-year ladder, where they're buying a charitable gift annuity each year for
Yes.
10 years, and we look at the year-by-year increase in income, and they satisfy their philanthropic intent, and they're getting income, and that frees up their ability to gift to their children or grandchildren. It frees up other assets that they can do. And we take for granted again that I can gift a stock certificate or what have you that I paid $2,100 for. It's now $10,000.
That's right.
And I can avoid long-term capital gains. I can gift it to the American Cancer Society and say, here's a major gift, okay? There are a lot of ways of giving in society today. We touched on volunteers, and you mentioned how many volunteers?
We are well over 3 million.
3 million volunteers. And
Passionate volunteers.
I was going to say the same thing. Because when we have family or colleagues or friends or whatever that are affected by this deadly stuff. Another thing that amazes me is how many different kinds we have, okay? We talk about the big four, the big five or whatever, but leukemia, we have one of my staff members, Jeanette, her son had neuroblastoma and young kids. So we take for granted again when we're talking about some of the majors, prostate and breast cancer, we're talking about adults, okay?
Right.
Children cancer. And it grabs at you and you say, we've got to find some cures. We've got to find better research, enable these researchers to find cures like that. And the American Cancer Society has done so much in that area. Gus, I hate to say it, but you're always welcome to come back. But you've got to bring Jeanette back, okay?
I am more than happy to bring her back, and it really is a pleasure having you here, and you know that. And when somebody does make a planned gift, they become what's called a champion of the American Cancer Society. I made one several years ago. You might notice the little lapel button that I have here on my suit jacket that says champion of the society. The majority of gifts, I'm very respectful of people's privacy. You could be a champion, Bob, and you could remain anonymous. So the majority of them are anonymous where the only people that know they did the gifts is myself and that individual. But it is something that's so important to what I do and what Jeanette does, because we all want a world better for all our children and their grandchildren.
Right. And you've heard me say it before, it may be time for you to go back and revise or review at least your will, your last will and testament, and you gift to American Cancer Society $1,000 or $5,000. Try changing it to 1% or 5% of your estate, because what you did back in 1984 is not going to do the job today. So update, let's get realistic about our capacity to give and give more, and we're going to conquer this horrendous thing called cancer. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you, Bob, so much for having us.
Jeanette, you're welcome back. I don't know about Gus, but you're always welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.